Hello, everyone. Today we will be talking about divorce. I would like to start off by asking everyone, how many people know someone who have been divorced or are thinking about getting a divorce? According to Holly Hudson, around 33 to 50% of marriages end in divorce, which equals one divorce every 13 seconds in America. 41% of first marriages and 73% of third marriages end in divorce. McKinley Irvin reports that almost half of failed marriages are from couples that are under 20 years of age, in comparison to 12% of those who are over 35 years or older. On average, people usually stay together for only 8 years before ending a relationship or a marriage that is supposed to be for life. With these statistics, it's no surprise that divorce is becoming an epidemic in our country. Divorce results in poverty, single parent households, a lack of morals, depression, and even suicide. Divorce, divorce rates can be drastically decreased when couples turn their problems into building blocks for the future instead of separating and getting a divorce. A marriage should not be about just the husband and wife, but also about God. According to David Foster, the differences between a man and a woman ignite the power and the glory of creation itself. God created Eve from the side of Adam. In order to fulfill God's journey, a man should leave his mother and father and become one with his wife. God is the head of the husband, and the husband is the head of the wife. According to Old Path, marriage is pure. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. Corinthians states, "Do not deprive one another, except with consent for time, that you may give yourself to fast and prayer. Come together again so that Satan does not tempt you because of your lack of self control." God wanted to teach us how to love each other just as he loves us. The Bible says that he who loves his wife also loves himself. Marriage is a gift from God. It was created to make us happy. We must obey his words and pray for his blessing, help, and guidance in our lives. When we obey God, it will help our marriage to stay strong. The bond between a man and a woman should only be broken by death. In essence, we live for Christ when we marry, and this is even more reason to not file for a divorce. Divorce usually begins with some sort of deception. And as we all know, Satan is the master of deceiving. He fights against God's will. He wants to corrupt the family and the union between the man and the woman. When we first meet somebody, they're flawless, we're in love. As time goes on, we start to see the flaws in them. Um, Eventually, we start to believe that they've changed or that we've married the wrong person. We start to have negative thoughts about our marriage. We start to resent our spouses because we feel that we've married the wrong person. And maybe even think that, the grass is greener on the other side. These lies will lure us away from God's plans for marriage, according to Scruggs. Believing the snowball of deception will lead people to feeling disgruntled in their marriage, and more marriages will end in divorce. Often the first deception comes into play when people think that they've married the wrong person. But in reality, nobody's perfect. We all have flaws. When two people are in a relationship, they should accept each other for their flaws and not allow these differences to push them away from each other. According to the Bible, when you say I do, you become a one flesh union, which is even more reason to cherish those vows and the commitment that you made to each other. Love can be deceiving. Sometimes people, they don't know the definition of love, or else they compare their relationship to other relationships that they think are perfect, such as examples of love that they see around them. Also, maybe their parents' relationship they compare it to. Um, and in reality, no one's marriage is perfect. If you're feeling discontent in your marriage, you should turn to your loved one and communicate, and also pray to God, turn to God, to give you guidance, because we all believe that we deserve to be happy, and God wanted us to be happy, but we shouldn't focus only on our happiness. We should focus on God. He wants us to glorify Him and seek Him in all we do. um, it's up to you how you handle your emotions. If you're in a relationship, um, you shouldn't let this deception cause you to disengage from your spouse. God may be trying to teach you something in these hard times. He may want to show you how to love pure. It's through these times that we are tested, taught, and able to grow from our experiences. Sometimes you have to look inside your own heart and confront these lies before it ruins your relationships. Sometimes we believe things because we want to, not because they're necessarily true. There are many things, such as romantic movies, music, and sinful thoughts, that distort our thinking when it comes to marriage. Anyone is capable of giving into temptation at any time, but in order to fight temptation and to avoid getting a divorce, people must seek God as the foundation of their marriage. God never intended for a family to be broken or a marriage to end. A lot of times people think that divorce is the easy way out of a marriage, but in reality, they divorce does not free a person from pain. It actually causes them more pain. Well, it may be a good idea to get away from the person that's causing you this pain. In the end, it ends up being harder going through a divorce. Carol Shrug said that her life never really settled after her divorce. And she was the one that filed for a divorce from her husband. And in the end, she referred to this day as the worst day of her life. She wasn't excited about it. She felt sick in her stomach. She had a weird feeling. She drove to the courthouse. The judge asked her where her husband was. Carol lied to the judge, telling him that her husband was at work, because she didn't want to tell the judge that her husband actually wanted a second chance and begged her to try to work things out in their marriage. But Carol, she couldn't deal with the emptiness and lack of affection in her marriage, and she thought the only way to free herself from the pain was to start all over again. Once the judge granted her divorce, she immediately thought, how would her husband feel that the marriage was officially over? How would her kids handle the separation? She fought and worked for something that in the end she had regrets about doing, which is even more reason to stay married and work it out. Children are God's greatest gifts, and often they're the ones that suffer the most during a divorce. Just as God teaches us how to love, He also teaches us how to parent our children. We should set an example for our children in all aspects of life. Couples with children are 40% less likely to divorce than people with children. Why do you think this is true? Perhaps it's because children who have parents that are happily married are 14% less likely to divorce as adults. Most children fear their parents getting a divorce. Um, Judith Wallerstein, she concluded that even 25 years after a divorce of a parent, the children still remember the feeling lonely, the terror. Children are aware of the chaos that's going on around them, and they feel fear that both their parents will leave them. They don't know who to turn to. Who do they live with? Who do they love more? Um, who do they turn to? They can suffer from psychological and behavior problems, because it's stressful on the children. Sometimes they withdraw from their parents and the world around them, and other times they're unintentionally pressured to mature before they should. It becomes a question of who gets the kids on holidays and birthdays, and the awkwardness between the parents at school activities. The children never know what's going to happen next and can never really find stability because they're moving from one household to the next. So this is another reason to stay married. How do you think that living in a single parent household or in poverty affects the children? Marriage has become more to satisfy a person's needs for happiness rather than to unite as one flesh under God. Society's view on marriage has changed over the years, and today divorce is more accepted in society as a solution to an unhappy marriage as opposed to remaining married and working it out. When making the decision to divorce, we shouldn't be thinking about what works best for us, but rather what God would want us to do. It becomes a question of, should I stay married and miserable or get divorced and become happy? It sounds like an easy question. I mean, who would want to be miserable? Um, However, there's only a time of temporary happiness, because ultimately the divorce ends up affecting the spouse, the children, and the friends. And according to a study by Blackenhorn, there's no real evidence that proves that getting a divorce will make anyone happier. So this is even more reason to try and do anything that you can to stay married and keep your family together. Mark Goulson stated that marriage ends not because couples stop loving each other, but because they can't stop hating each other. They need to address their problems together in order to improve their marriages. Author Leo Tolstoy observed that what counts in making a happy marriage is not so much how compatible you are, but how you deal with incompatibility. He claims that a strong commitment to marriage is an institution, and a powerful reluctance to divorce does not only keep unhappy married people locked in misery together, they also help couples form a happier bond. To avoid divorce may assume marriages must become happier, but it is at least equally true that in order to get happier, unhappy spouses or couples must first avoid divorce. I think that Leo is saying that by making a commitment to your spouse, you're committing to do everything in your power to keep your marriage together. When attempting to save your marriage, you should pray to God to restore the communication and the love back into your relationship. You should avoid saying harsh words to your spouse, because it makes it harder to forgive and mend the relationship after harsh words are spoken. All marriages are worth saving, according to Mitch Temple. Um, a survey from the National Fatherhood Initiative Marriage Survey found that more than 3/5 of divorced Americans wish that they or their spouse would have worked harder to save their marriage. People regret getting divorces, and this is all the more reason to stay together and work it out. There's something called therapeutic separation that is an alternative to divorce, where the couple is separated for 30 days from each other. They're not allowed to contact each other unless it's actually an emergency. This way, the couple will know what it's like to actually go through a divorce and be separated from their spouse. From there, they work on individual issues and counseling. They end up going to joint counseling. They'll start going on date nights once a week in order to rekindle their feelings and just to be civil towards each other and work on um, making their hearts grow fonder and focus on the good qualities that they are missing instead of the undesirable behavior. So this should be something that's practiced. 10 Reasons to Stay Together, Kathy Noblick. You have history together. The good outweighs the bad, and if not, then you should be doing something to change it. It's better to try and give your all than to give up. You stay together for the kids. You should stay together because nobody's perfect, because there's always going to be differences in relationships, because love will change. The foundation of your family started with you two. And you should stay together because you know the best and the worst in each other, and you know each other in and out. And love is not enough. Love and commitment is what will overcome anything. In summary, there may be several stressors that affect the marriage and attempt to break it apart, but the couple has to turn to their union with God in order to find guidance in their time of need. God is with us every hour of every day. He knows the details of our hearts and can guide us to where He plans for us to be. All we have to do is listen. Love isn't easy. Marriage is like writing a speech. You only get out of it what you put in. When you give your all and work consistently, on building a sturdy foundation, resilience will form and your marriage will be rock strong. Finally, God's will is that marriage should only be broken by death, and that's precisely why we should honor our vows and avoid divorce.